We'll have 300 garages, a 1.6 mile performance track, an 80-acre off-road track, a 2-acre skid pad, and a 35,000 square foot corporate event space. So I have a membership-based club, I got driving schools, I got corporate events, I have sponsorship, I have public events. We actually have a women's drivers club, wine tastings and dinners, and I take 20 couples to Europe every year to drive cars through Italy. We do charity events, and there's a social committee. Like, they plan their own events. Every month at M1, we'll do the same thing here. There's an Italian night, and there's a food truck rally, and there's a charity thing. And
Jeff Stearns, connected through cars. If they're bigwigs, we'll have them on the show. And yes, we'll talk about cars and everything else. Here he is now, Jeff Stearns.
Basically, took the idea of creating an automotive experience center in Metro Detroit. And many people told me I was crazy and it wouldn't work. And I ended up buying a former General Motors factory property out of the bankruptcy in 2012 and developed a new version of these sort of automotive country clubs. Most of them are racing oriented. Mine is more about community and camaraderie, and sort of the foundation is the garage community. And we happen to have a racetrack that we don't use for racing. We use for high performance driving and corporate events and corporate entertainment and driving schools.
So what's the difference between racing? You already got me into. What's the difference between racing and high performance driving? Is it just that you can't pass someone and race them?
We can actually pass, but we just don't have any. We have no competitive. There's no winner. We're not trying to win a race. Which numerous reasons why it's different. One is it's way better on the insurance. It's way safer. And it's a different business where I've got, people that pay me to be members of a club to drive their cars versus, people trying to race, cars. I always say the auto enthusiast audience is massive. The racing audience is very narrow, and the racing audience that has money is 1,000 guys in the U.S. Unless you're in the Formula One or NASCAR game, which is a totally different business, it's very hard to make a business viable if you're based on racing. My business is based on developing a community. It's a lifestyle business where people want to come hang out, have a garage, a man cave, office, entertainment space, and, oh, by the way, drive periodically. But the driving on my track is predominantly corporate entertainment and driving schools for, non-members.
And you mentioned driving schools. I've got a background with a number of manufacturers where, as a dealer, we would go have a driving day to try out the new model, and they would have professional drivers, and they would tell us to hit the gas as hard as you can until you get to this cone, and then lay on the brakes, and then make a left, and here's a wet area, and I want you to try the ABS and turn. Is this the sort of thing?
Yeah, it's exactly that, and we do plenty of that. Actually, all the manufacturers rent our facilities for that purpose. But actually, most of our clients are non-automotive. Outside our club, which is our garage owners, which are doing different driving activities, our typical client is, JP Morgan coming to entertain clients, or a charity event, or, something where it's just team building offsite board meeting type of entertainment. Sort of like what Topgolf does for golf, I do with driving.
So team building, thinking about that, or entertaining a client. I'm going to assume that when someone's invited to do something like this, they don't all have a car or an appropriate car or a local car or a car in your place. So how does that work logistically?
So we have fleet partners. At M1 Concourse, Dodge was a partner, Lexus was a partner, and they provided us vehicles, which we use in those programs. And we're working on the same type of deals. Many of the manufacturers love our business because we put thousands of butts in seats, basically, and people get to experience the cars in a controlled environment, and actually, when they're very focused and enjoying their passion. So we've proven that we can convert people from thrill rides or driving schools or driving programs into being buyers. So the manufacturer, we love to give you cars and have you use them all those different use cases. So we have in Michigan, we will have here at the Enclave, we'll have a whole fleet of cars, both for on track and off road here. We're building a very large off road component as well.
So these provided cars by manufacturers, and it's understanding what's the number one goal of a retailer or a manufacturer is to get someone to actually drive it, not just look at it, not just read a brochure. So for this marketing component, do they provide you the cars at no cost, or just give a very deep discount for the event?
They actually provide the cars at no cost. Some companies will give you the vehicles or sell you the vehicles for $1. Most of the companies, they're coming out of a fleet, similar to a media fleet, and they're
the press cars, right?
Yeah, and they're refreshing the cars every 6 to 9 months. because they want to make sure they got good product there. They also oftentimes will pay for our maintenance and tires and brakes, which is great. But obviously you've got to deliver ROI to them, and they like it. And actually, the whole industry, as you may know, is just moving towards experiential programs, away from auto shows. Auto shows are great, but auto shows, millions of people go to take their kids to get walk around and have popcorn and ice cream. They're not transacting, so they realize with the hundreds of millions of dollars they spend on auto shows, they can spend a fraction of that and actually put truly engaged people, into vehicles and have a higher conversion. I mean, the testament to this is Porsche, who's made a multi-billion-dollar investment building their own experience centers around the world and not doing auto shows anymore, because they recognize that they'd rather, it's the old CRM model, that casinos use. I'd rather spend all my money against my high-value prospects versus 99% of the people that are just that are looky-loos,
Right, and that's a tough line to walk. I mean, in the end, you've got to measure, if you're the manufacturer, what's getting something sold. I understand that, but you and I have similar background in that we're both Detroiters and Floridians, and what a difference between, for example, the Detroit Auto Show and the Tampa Auto Show. I know Detroit's tier 1. I think, and I don't mean this in a disparaging way, I think Tampa's tier 3 or 4.
And it's a great sort of segue into talking back about M1, because the Detroit Auto Show was in the process of transforming. They moved it, from late fall to the summertime. Then COVID hit. They were planning on a big outdoor festival and more of an experiential auto show versus in a convention center. COVID changed their plans. The auto show is actually moving to M1 Concourse, the facility I created in Michigan, in September this year, to do predominantly driving activities with all kinds of displays around the track and a kind of a village environment, which is way more experiential and engaging. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. I think it's going to be a huge success. Obviously you're going to not have millions of people coming through with their kids because it's a totally different format, but you'll have hundreds of thousands of people that are way more engaged, and they'll be able to hopefully convert those people to buyers and be able to track that is the goal. So it's interesting that they have finally made the decision that experiential is where it's at. And they've always done ride and drives and all kinds of programs, but it's really the amount of money these manufacturers spend on auto shows. It's just not and they continue to do it because that's what they've always done, and that's sort of the industry model. But I think they're starting to realize that, programs at places where you can drive in a safe and controlled environment and that are more, automotive focused. And if you look at the tracks around the country, even the ones that are the more racing oriented facilities, they have partnerships. I was just at Monticello in New York, which is an amazing track. They have partnerships with Porsche and BMW there. If you go to AMP, Atlanta Motorsports Park, they have BMWs there. If you go to, obviously Ron Fellows Driving School in Vegas, they've got huge Chevrolet program. If you go to Thermal in Palm Springs, you got BMWs and some other cars. So all these manufacturers are definitely seeing the benefit of these type of facilities, and it's interesting how the auto shows are evolving. I think it's going to evolve very quickly, actually.
Well, the speed of evolution with what happened in last year. I mean, really, anyone that was on the fence, that created a lot of quick evolution. Now, when you talk about the cost difference, now Detroit International Auto Show, or New York Jacob Javits, or Frankfurt, or Tokyo, a few the big ones, or LA, when you go, the manufacturers are there with what almost seems like, if it's a single level, almost like a half acre of cars, and maybe not, but it sure seems like that. You could, as far as the eye can see, for one manufacturer, or some of them even use the double or triple level with the stairways, and some of the cars are mounted upside down, and all of that business, and that's got to be millions of dollars for a single event. Now, Tampa, and I don't want to take anything away from the motor enclave in Tampa and the manufacturer, but Tampa, because I used to run the show, forgive me, as the dealer, I used to run my display. In Tampa, the manufacturer has each dealer inside of that market bring a couple of cars and staff it. So I forgot, also no spokesmodels hired. So other than the space, I don't know what the expenditure is, but the reason I'm so excited about what you're doing here is when I was running exotic car dealership in the Tampa Bay area, I noticed that, and I was at first thinking, gosh, but you get such a smaller crowd. I mean, how in the world could you possibly get that many people behind the wheel and have that many cars and have that many instructors and all of that business? But anytime I could pick a number, 50 clients to either one of those events and mingle with them and watch them enjoy. And there would be a family component because a lot of people would bring their son to be, or son or daughter to be in the other seat, their kid, and then have some kind of meal with them and talk to them. And then everybody who didn't know each other on the way in, the social component that you talked about, now at the end of the day, sharing stories, and they're so jacked up and they're so excited. There's no way that they couldn't feel an emotional connection to that make or to that dealer or to that crowd. It wouldn't matter. So I agree that I would end up, if it came right down to just selling cars and building relationships, that I would sell easily a few out of the 50, easily, and certainly build long-term relationships that would turn into however many deals and service, business, etc. Versus auto shows that I've stood there for 3 days, especially at like a Rolls and Bentley display, where all day long, and God bless them, I mean, they're just trying to be funny, and I'm not judging or shaming anyone, but all day long with the gift bag from whatever brand asking me, how fast does it go? How much is it? And does it come with Grey Poupon? And I'm not kidding. I mean, that would be, we would just like, almost like a robot, spit out the answers. And again, I'm not saying that we didn't run into anybody that would buy, but we'd talk to however many thousand to probably end up with the same number of net sales at the end and legitimate relationships.
The Detroit Auto Show, historically, in the last 10 years, the manufacturer spent over $200 million on a 10-day event to build those displays.
200 mil over the 10 years or per event?
Per event.
You would have knocked me over with a feather. I would have never thought that. Okay.
Yes, and the convention center has to be closed down for 4 or 5 months while they build those displays. It's a totally inefficient model. And a manufacturer, let's just say an average manufacturer,
nothing to think about.
Yeah, I mean, but the big ones spend 10 to 12 million on their booth. Do a program with me that's all year round, every 24/7. You're talking about giving, $1 million worth of cars. It's not, this is like, the differential is so massive.
You're right. They could do it many times a week all year and not spend that.
So that's where we're heading. And then you talked about, sort of the network effect, or the people leaving having a good feeling. Now with social media and all these tools, you put them in a car and then you give them tools to post their ride and talk about it. Next thing you know, that one track like the Enclave is all over the country, all over the world. We have in-car cameras and we have telemetry devices and we have things that we facilitate to push content out that the manufacturer doesn't have to create. It's created by the customer experience the vehicle. So it's just the model is changing, and we're still not at a point where the manufacturers completely understand the ROI. I think it's getting there very quickly, and unfortunately, a lot of companies just do what they've always done. I think, like you said, COVID has really changed their perspective in many ways, and budgets are shifting tremendously into different areas because they can tell that someone transact, and with these CRM tools and databases, you can sort of tell what touch points did you have with Jeff Stearns, and they know Jeff came to a driving program. Jeff registered on our website. Jeff is a fan of ours on Instagram, and then the people that really know what they're doing, they can map that data out and say, all right, Jeff's highly likely to buy the new Bronco or whatever,
Right. He's showing the signals. Right.
Yeah. It was all guesswork before.
Correct. Now, Tampa and Nashville, what do we call them? Garages? Or spaces? What do we call what we're selling in there that we have the opportunity to become a member and have a space?
Yeah, so I call them private garages. Some people call them car condominiums. So in both facilities, we'll have large. So first of all, the largest car condo community in America is, I think, almost 200 units. It's actually in Naperville, Illinois, but it's just garages. It's a beautiful facility called Iron Gate. The next largest is... Actually, the largest is M1 Concourse. We have 250 garages. But the next one's Iron Gate. The third one is Automotorplex in Minneapolis, of all places. He's got 150 garages, I think. There's lots of little projects that have 30, 40 units all around the country in many, many cities. They don't portray themselves as private garages or car condos. They're more storage facilities, but they become communities of people with the same interests. So my projects, like I did in Michigan, will be very large. I always say to myself, like, if you're going to do 50, you might as well do 300. It's the same amount of work if you choose the right location. So in Tampa, it's exactly what we did in Michigan. It's sort of my version of the Auto Country Club, less racing focused, more community focused. So we'll have 300 garages, a 1.6 mile a performance track, an 80-acre off-road track, a 2-acre skid pad, and a 35,000 square foot corporate event space. In Nashville, we're doing just garages. We're going to have 200 individual private garage units in a suburb of Nashville. In both those cities, I chose based on data. It wasn't like I just said, oh, there's a bunch of cool cars in Tampa. If I did that, I'd go in Miami, but those aren't really my customers. My customers are true car enthusiasts. In Tampa, actually, when I looked at the data of car registration, growth, and wealth data and mashed that together, Tampa, revealed itself as one of the top 20 cities, actually in the top 10. And people would say, well, Tampa's not really a car town. Well, we started selling the garages 4 months ago. We haven't even built anything yet, and we've sold 170 units in 4 months in Tampa, and that equates to about $60 million of selling garages, white box garage space. So clearly there's a market here, and it's a tremendous, when I meet all these people that are buying the garages, you go see these cars that no one ever takes out. It's like guys have collections, and people have amazing classic cars and muscle cars and exotic cars. And the sort of common denominator is Tampa's like Michigan. I think it's very low key. There's, clearly what I'm selling on the garage component, we have lots of ways the public can access the facility at a very low price, whether it's free cars and coffee or a driving school for $300 or whatever. Our garage entry price is $215,000. So, you got people who have to have some level of means to buy these garages, but, these people they're not driving around town in Ferraris. A lot of my customers come to me and go, oh, I would love to own a Ferrari or my classic Mustang or that car I had on my wall as a kid. I would never drive that around town. I don't want people to think I'm, flashy. So my customers tend to be very low key, and they love the idea of what we're doing because it's private and they can enjoy their passion for cars and buy those things they've always wanted. It's often like, I don't have a spot in my house. My wife won't let me give up her spot. I don't want to drive around town in a fancy car because if my employees see me, they'll ask me for a raise. Lots of different reasons we keep hearing. And it's exactly what happened in Michigan. So, back to your original question, it's really it's rooted in the garage community. Tampa happens to have all these other businesses that make it a long-term viable business. The garage condos are great, but it's a one-time sale because they own them like a condo, and then I'm out. So Nashville is awesome, but once we're sold out, that project is sort of by itself, and it's controlled by an HOA association. In Tampa, once I sell the garages, I have a membership-based club, I got driving schools, I got corporate events, I have sponsorship, I have public events. It's a nice business long-term, just like M1 Concourse really was the test bed, and we proved out sort of what works and what doesn't work there.
Well, and I really love the idea of the someone to play with component. Because one of the things in the dealerships that I ran that was very successful was just simply introducing clients to other clients that we thought, oh, he doesn't really work much. He needs someone to hang out with during the day. And they started meeting at the dealership as a social hub on a Friday or Saturday night. I can't tell you how many times I had 5, 10, 15 cars parked for them to meet and then go wherever they were going to go next. So I love that idea. For all the reasons cited by you, makes all the sense in the world, but there's got to be to meet someone else to play with that's interested in what I'm interested in. Now, you said cost of entry, $215,000. Does that mean that there's different sizes? Are there, so they can put more? So we could have a private unit up to housing how many vehicles, give or take?
That smallest unit entry point at 215 is about a 600 square foot garage. Ground floor will hold 2 to 3 cars. All the spaces I sell as a white box, but they're 24 foot clear inside. So they could put a mezzanine in, a car lift, a triple car lift even. And then we play with the width. They're all 40 feet deep, but we can go as wide as someone wants to go. And then we can combine units. So average person's either buying a 600 or 700 or a 1,400 square foot box, which is really 3 car, 5 car, or 8 car. And then they can combine them. We've got a few dozen people that bought 2 or 3 units. One guy bought 10 units, 14,000 square feet. So it's really up to them. And we sell them as empty box, and then we sell upgrades and build outs and packages, and they can do it on their own, or they can use our resources.
So you'll build it out, or they can bring their own contractor, or from a selected group of contractors that are allowed to work in?
Either way. We happen to have great resources, so a lot of the owners will use our resources also because we do so many units at once that we're very competitive. But I don't like to tie people's hands, and if they got a contractor friend or relative or someone they like, they can do that. But these people, our garages are an order of magnitude of $325 a square foot for a white box space. And then they're putting another $150 to $300 a foot inside. So the average buyer here, you're talking about having, $600-700 a square foot of garage, which is way more than most people's homes. But you're in there's only 300 of them. There'll only ever be 300 of them. And it's all about community and camaraderie. It's sort of, I don't like the term country club because it's not really a country club environment. It's more like you said, it's all about social activation and being around people with a similar passion. And, we don't have the kind of, we don't have rules where you got to wear a sport coat, when you come do stuff. So that's what I'm telling people. And people come to me and go, you're out of your mind. You're charging $300,000 for a 5-car garage. I could build a pole barn on my property for $150,000.
But no one to play with.
And I say, listen, I'm not selling storage. I can get you storage a lot cheaper all over town. I'm selling community and camaraderie, and I happen to have a racetrack. But even the facility I'm building in Nashville has no racetrack. I'm selling that exclusive environment, very high-end product. I mean, you can't build what I'm building on your property for even the price I'm selling it for. Our buildings are hurricane-rated concrete structures they come with dedicated 100 amp 3-phase power and rooftop HVAC and all kinds of different things that a normal person would not do. But I understand the clientele and the end user. But it is really about the social part. Some people do buy
generator.
Some people. They can put in that, but we don't have it built in.
I was going to say, they might just go there for their hurricane power outages, but they'd have to have that set up on their own. Okay.
Yeah, we're actually outside we're in the 3rd tier wind zone in Tampa, so that's pretty good. We're also attached to the Tampa Executive Airport, so it wasn't part of my business plan. It's just coincidental. That's where the property was, and that's how I got it, because we're between an airport and a freeway, and that's how we got it approved, I believe. But turns out I'm selling garages to guys that have planes that live in Naples and Boca and elsewhere who are saying, I'll fly my plane in 15 minutes from Naples, land there, spend the day at the track, and then fly home. And that's a huge thing. It wasn't even, I thought, well, how many guys really have planes? Turns out, decent number.
A lot of them.
Yeah. So that's a cool element.
And they want somewhere to go, because a lot of these guys, because they just want to keep their book up and their flying hours up. They need a destination. They're right now, other than needing to go between their 2 advertising offices between here and Atlanta or something, they're mainly looking for somewhere to go to lunch on a weekend anyway in their plane.
And I keep saying, guys, it actually, it's predominantly male-driven, the garage ownership. However, it's very, very family-oriented. And we actually have a women's drivers club, and there's the wives and spouses and significant others are, I would say, very, very involved in all aspects. The garage, the hanging out, the social activity. Some of our greatest events are not driving events. They're actually wine tastings and dinners. And I take 20 couples to Europe every year to drive cars through Italy. We do charity events, and there's a social committee. Like, they plan their own events. Every month at M1, we'll do the same thing here. There's an Italian night, and there's a food truck rally, and there's a charity thing. And
this has been Jeff Stearns, Connected Through Cars.